If you clicked on this video, you probably know Football Fusion, NFL Universe Football, and maybe even Legendary Football. But what if I told you there was a game before all of those called Football Legends? Not that Football Legends, which laid the groundwork for the Roblox football we know today. To learn more, we are interviewing the creator of Football Legends to find out how Ro Football originally came to be. It's the GOAT himself, SDuke524. What's up?
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, I joined Roblox in 2012 and I always thought you were the first person to create a playable football game on Roblox. Now, were you the first? And if not, who was?
So I was the first to make a game, but there was real football before me. The very first game that I made was, I think, 2009, 2010, and I really made it because I saw that there was these row football leagues going on that just had really bad tech at that point. They had a tool that you had to click on somebody and it would freeze them, and then it would send a little message saying, "Oh, so and so's tackled," and that was the only way there was tackling. The ball was, they had like a one bounce rule because they didn't even have a ball that was good enough to stay in the air. It would bounce on the ground before you could catch it. So I was just making that stuff, and then a bunch of other stuff happened before I ended up eventually making a full game, and it blew up overnight.
Oh, was the old football like the dodgeball basically? Because that's what it sounds like.
It was. It was that, if you remember the old Robux tools, it was literally just a retexturing of the Super Ball. That was all it was.
Oh, dang. So, how old were you when you made your first game?
I was I was 14 when I made that very first one. I'd made a couple of games before that, but that one blew up overnight once it started going. I wasn't even done building it. I just like barely started the automated game process, and there was already 400 people on, which at the time was a lot. I mean, I got to front page and number one on front page, both like 3,000 at that point, which I know is nothing now.
Oh, 3,000 you said?
hmm
Oh, that's a lot of people. So was that the original Football Legends that hit 3,000?
The 3,000 current players. Yeah, that was the very first one. Yeah, because how do I say it? Yeah, because I remember it was like starting to go up, and then I talked to, I don't know if you remember Crazy Man 32. He was another developer at the time, made a bunch of other games,
No.
but he had been a lot more successful than me, and I was like, hey man, I can't just seem to, crack that really top hit. What do I do? And he's like, oh, just give it this really nice picture and give it, a fun name, and then we'll do it. And then, yeah, just overnight, all of a sudden it was, no, or I changed it, and then within, I want to say an hour or two, it was number one on the front page for about 3 days, and then it just was always consistently there. So that was amazing. It was buggy though, because like I said, I was 14. I was not able to make a really particularly great game at that point. Yeah, but it did change a lot of the way that I think pro football is even shaped up today. Because there's, again, the automatic tackle was probably the big thing, and actually really controversial at that point. Believe it or not, most
Really?
people thought automatic tackle like took a lot of the skill out of the game. That was always the complaint. Every time I made something new, it just ruins the skill. There's no more skill. And I'm like, dude, it's no, y'all just are resistant to change. Like, you're gonna have to just get used to it. Same thing with the automatic catch. Whenever I made the like hands that were moving towards the ball and stuff, people were like, it just takes the skill out of the game. So that was nothing new. But one of the big things, there was this glitch that I think I didn't realize until then later, but there's that invisible wall that's over the line of scrimmage, and it kept counting that as being hit. So it would make the ball drop really, really quickly, and you were pretty much required to throw either screen passes or really quick slants. So that was just the meta at the time, as you were throwing quick slant passes 24/7. That, and because the ball was way faster and the catch radius, because again I hadn't made the click to catch yet, so catch radius was much smaller, so it was really on the quarterback to deliver just a really quick slant pass and a really accurate one. And then when you got guys that were really good at it, like me, when there wasn't even the diving at that point, you could really hit anybody in any coverage kind of thing with just timing it well. So it is a lot different than today's game where a lot of it really revolves around just bombing it deep, which, like, I know even like me and some of the other old heads still struggle with that kind of play versus like I can hit a slant at any point because that's just what I grew up with.
Wow, that's crazy. See, you invented the tackling, which I kind of took for granted. I don't have a note on ask about tackling. I assume that was a guarantee. And then you also you invented the click for catch as well.
Yeah, I'm into the click for catch. That was much later though. That was into the third game that I had, the Legends Football year, because yeah, there was Football Legends. Then my account got hacked, so it got banned. So then on a new account, I pulled it up and I was starting to build a new game. And it was, again, it was my testing server where I was building the game that it blew up. Like it was literally, it was called Old Football Legends because that was the game, that was the testing server I was building for. And then it blew up, and then for some reason the name just stuck. And heck, there's even a league named after Old Football Legends when it was actually just like a mistake. That was just my testing server.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you're connected to that OFL league at all.
It's based on my game. I was pretty big at the time of not trying to get associated with leagues. I do think that was a mistake in hindsight. At the time, I was thinking that, like, oh, I don't want people being turned off or put away by me supporting these one leagues or another. And then also just bringing in other people can really cause problems. OFL now, it's been going for 10 plus years, and yeah, very respectable league. And uh, Brill was a great guy too. Every time I had met him as well, so respect him a lot. But at the time, I was like, I don't know. There's a bunch of leagues. Like I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. But now in hindsight, I'm like, no, I should have just let as many leagues be associated with the game as they want and done more for that. But you know, that's whatever now.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about. Like, so you said in the games before you there were leagues. Was this a Roblox group league and they had to schedule in teams, or was Discord a thing back then?
It was crazier than that. So back then, Roblox actually had its own forum. So a lot of teams, whenever groups were created, there would be some leagues that would start. Um, and I made a bunch of stuff to try to help the leagues really get off the ground and do something because it was just fun to see. But the majority of teams were actually what you would call travel teams. Interesting enough, I'm trying to bring the league, make a league right now through Discord that's going to be kind of similar, bringing this back. But the travel teams, you would really just go into the sports forum on Roblox and you'd post that you're looking for a game, and then somebody else who has a team would, schedule with you. Then y'all would meet up and y'all would play a game. It wasn't necessarily as like formalized with, oh, you're going to be playing this team this week, or I know some of these leagues are insane. Or like, yeah, you got to play 2-3 games a week. Like, nah, that's just unreasonable by any standards.
Oh,
Uh,
is it? And also, I found in 2011 you were a pro Roblox wrestler and had the title of co-owner. Was that also a forum league?
that one was a group league. So, yeah, so I wrestled all throughout high school, and I also did jujitsu, so I loved that. So when I was in high school, I was trying to make something similar to that style of wrestling, which is in all reality, pretty much an impossible task because there's so much of your body that's moving at once and so many little things that you can't with your hands mimic everything you can do with all of your body. So it's just never really going to happen unless it's like some VR thing. Um, but we made some little like gimmicky thing, and it was fun, and got a bunch of other people that enjoyed it. Yeah, and people like contacted today, and then we had a league running, and that was pretty successful too. Because again, I had another game that I made a little like I think it was called like wrestling chess. It was just a small game mode. Made that. went to a jiu-jitsu class, came back, took a shower, and when I got back over, it was on the front page again. And I was like, okay, I guess this is big now. So
What?
it was fun.
What was
Oh,
the
sorry.
peak player count of wrestling?
Probably about the same. You know, like it didn't stay up as long as Football Legends, but it still got a couple million visits overall. So, and I think it only really went down because I personally was trying to push, like, no, I want y'all to do wrestling the way that I do wrestling. We're not just going to have this mini game. If I had left it as just the mini game and made a different game, the kind of wrestling I wanted to, it probably would have done a lot better. Um, but in all hindsight, I didn't care at that point. FX wasn't even a thing at that point, so I'm just getting Robux for Robux sake. I could not have cared less.
Yeah, but back to Football Legends. So, how did you invent the power meter, and what all went into that?
Yeah, so again, I think a lot of it was evolution is that I played my games a lot, and I was always looking for ways to just make things better. And one thing I really like to make sure that when I was doing these kind of things, especially because what I think is so beautiful about Roblox, especially back then, was that it had so many opportunities to do so many unique things. Um, there was just, yeah, and especially because people weren't as talented programmers, they're borrowing a lot of codes and having really just unique solutions to things. So I was always looking for just kind of unique solutions to problems. I wasn't trying to just borrow from Madden, even though I've designed that kind of throwing as well, and we just decided not to put it in the game because with the 5v5, it's just way too overpowered to have automatic
Oh, for
aiming. It
sure.
was like impossible to guard against. Um, so, but yeah, that also, like again, that took me learning calculus to be able to make the throws work like that.
At
That was not
14.
something I was capable of at 15.
I took pre-calc when I was 17, so you learned actual calculus at 15 to make Roblox throwing.
Oh, no, no, no. I'm saying the automatic throwing. That I think I was probably like a freshman in college or so when I was doing that because I think that's when I was taking calculus and kind of figure out how to do it. Um, but it was, yeah, again, little freshman, junior high, me just could not do that kind of thing. But so playing the game and looking for the problems, looking for the things that I really wanted. Again, at the time, the meta was you're throwing really quick slants 24/7. There was none of the sprint or dive, so people could juke like crazy back then, way better, and they could tackle way better than they do today because you had to be on your feet, and if they got a step behind you, it was over. There was no making up for it. Um, so I was looking to really just change those aspects of the meta and really let it just grow. Um, so the ways I did that was one, adding the sprint and dive to make it so that you can make up for a lot of missed space whenever you miss a tackle. And it wasn't just, oh, within 5 yards, I've juked you out, and now I'm getting a 95 yard touchdown, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then adding the power, the idea was to do what it does today, where you can throw it over people's head and you can lob it and throw it deep. You didn't have to necessarily just throw these quick slants, and you didn't have to necessarily depend on your receiver uh, making a good cut in front of the defender. Now they could cut behind them, and there was just a lot more opportunities at that point. My first attempt at it was the click and hold that you had in old Football Legends, and that you still see OFL use today. That was not very successful because yeah, it was just too difficult to really get the power you're looking for at that set point. So it really just became the same thing. You're just using 100% power and you're throwing it. Although there were some glitches with the jump, so people were still throwing it high up in the air. It was something. It did change the meta, especially me getting that glitch out so the ball could travel further. Changed the meta a lot. It was the third game I made that I think really made the biggest changes, and that was whenever I added the again trying to make changes to the meta. I added the Q&E where you're adjusting the power and you can really choose the power so that you can lob it over people's heads if you wanted to. And then that was that intended result I was actually hoping for by also changing like the gravity on the ball to make it a little bit lower and changing the speed a lot. Um, is the other big problem I had with OFL's meta besides the big glitch where you can jump in the air. It was that it still felt like the quarterback was doing everything. The receivers, they got open or they got a bit of space, but it was 100% on the quarterback whether it was a catch or not. The receiver had very little say in that. So I wanted the receivers to be doing more. And that's why I made the ball significantly slower so it's quicker and easier to react to. And then I made the click to catch and adjusted the dive so you could dive to the sides and you can dive backwards. That way the receivers could have a lot more say in whether the catch happens or not. And I I personally feel like it worked really well, and I like where that's at. I still have some ideas of I had a lot of ideas of things I would do to change it in the future, but that's probably not coming from me.
Well, I love the QB passing mechanic. I think it absolutely laps Madden because Madden is just kind of based on your QB rating. You just press a button, you can hold it for a bullet or tap for a lob. But what I like in Roblox is you as a quarterback, you have full control where the ball goes. Like if you lob it, then the DB can't reach it. You can do bullet passes. Like it's entirely on you and in your control. And I don't think there's another area of football video gaming where that's even a thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's one of those unique things about Roblox that I loved so much. Because I also love the fact that, unlike Madden, you really get to have every single player being a player on the field. I love Madden. I love college football. I play that all the time. And I do appreciate the freeform mechanics they added recently that I can do some of those back shoulder passes or things of that nature to really lead the receiver. But it's that the skill in that really comes down to reading your defense, which not a lot of people in Roblox really do, especially when you look at the leagues and they just only run cover three cloud or man blitz. Yeah, zero blitz. It's pretty easy to know it's coming your way. Uh,
Yeah, that's all you can
yeah,
do. If you're not in cover three, you're just going to get cooked. Like it's just such a meta.
oh, that's also on the league rules. Like I feel like if the league just allowed or required one more blocker, you could do a lot more. Because when you think about it, like in real life, you're required at least five blockers. You're going to have uh, at max five receivers in an 11 on 11 game. In an 8v8 Roblox game, even in these leagues, it's going to be seven or eight receivers against a 7 or 8 man coverage shell, which usually it's five receivers against, uh, what was it again, for 6 to 7 person coverage shell. It's a big difference in the adaptability that you have. So I think it's on the leagues to require more blockers would really be what it is. But then I know that's a difficult thing with how overpowered blocking is in UF right now. So it's a big give and take.
But yeah, I think the field and team size is underrated. And working with Clixer, he tried different field sizes, and then he finally set on the right field. I think we had 3 different fields. He went with the medium one, and then he settled on 6v6. And then I remember I joined you once, probably in 2013, and I was fanboying because you're an owner. Owners were big celebrities back then. They still kind of are, but I don't think as much. And then I asked about 11v11, and you said the field was too small for that. So how do you calculate the total player count and the field size going into games?
So at that time with those mechanics, I would say yes. I still personally stand by keep the field the same, like field size that makes sense. Because I'm not a fan of when people do the giant fields and the characters stay the same size, so it looks like you're a bunch of toddlers playing football.
Oh yeah.
It just feels wrong to me. Um, I can get expanding it a little bit to make it kind of like the college football field size, but the problem at the time, because I did try it, I did try it at one point, but it was the blocking I was using at that point. It just became a chaotic mess. I think that was during the OFL time. Is that right? Or is that after when I did the TLFH?
I don't know too much. I just played your game when I was around 12, 13. Sweated it a lot. But I was never
Yeah,
into
so
leagues.
very fun. So the other change I made from OFL to the Legends Football Heroes was I changed blocking from being automatic to being press X to block. And the automatic blocking was an absolute pain because it made it to where you're running your route and you're basically just fighting the worst pass interference you've ever seen in your life the entire time. Um,
Was it like the pro rug ball blocking?
they probably did take that same blocking, yeah, because I tried to make as much of my stuff available to the public as I could. So the original purpose of me even making this was I wanted to improve gameplay, improve leagues for everyone else on Roblox. I'm pretty sure all my old games are uncopy-locked to this point, and people can go take the code. Uh, Although, with the exception of Cloudburst and I guess I forget who they got bought out by, but
Oh, Valdex.
yeah, Valdez. Like I love what they've done with UFL. It did sadden me that there really wasn't much improvement on the gameplay in the like 10 plus years since I created my last game up until them. 'Cause I was like, yeah.
Really? So
But anyways,
you feel
yeah,
like
sorry, back
UF
to
the gameplay is too similar to yours? Like it hasn't evolved enough?
no UF. I like what they've done. They've done a lot of the things that I was planning on doing. There's still some tweaks I would do, but that's me personally. That's not them. And I learned from my early days when I was really young because I was getting, and I was like 14 years old when I first made Football Legends, and when it blew up, and I was getting at least 20 to 30 messages a day, uh, not including the fact that any server I went to, it filled up. And out of these 20 to 30 messages, probably about four of them were nice. The rest of them were telling me to go kill myself, to that I was the worst person that ever lived, that they can't believe I made this change or that I haven't updated this. And it was just for one, it was like, do you actually like my game or not? I can't tell because you seem so mad about this. Uh, but two, it made me realize after probably just 2, 3 weeks that I was just not going to please everyone. That if I didn't make a change in 2 or 3 days to the games, I got a bunch of hate mail for not updating the game. Oh, if I did update the game, then I got a bunch of hate from a different group of people who were upset that I made any changes to the game. So I eventually said, screw it. I play this game a lot. I play it more than anybody else. I know it's going to make a good game. I'm not going to listen to anybody else. I'm going to make the game that I believe is the best and that I want to play. And I stand by that. I feel like that's the golden rule to making games is if you're not making a game that's fun, that you want to play, then you're not making a worthwhile game. That's the whole point of games is to be fun. So
For sure.
I stand by Voldex doing whatever they believe is right. You know, it's nice to listen to, you know, it's good to like listen and hear some of that public feedback because there were, some small things that some people had suggested that I did do because I did like the idea of it. But at the end of the day, like you do what you believe is best.
Yeah, I
And yeah,
think.
with
Well, I think
oh, go
devs
ahead.
are in a rough spot. It's kind of like referees in the NFL. No, everyone just hates on them. Like no one cares about good calls. Like everything's taken for granted. And devs like whatever goes wrong in a game, you're just going to get blamed for it. Basically,
Oh yeah,
it's a
yeah,
losing
yeah. The amount of
position.
times
Like,
yeah, and that's what again, like I said, some of the most controversial things that people take for granted and would not play a game without today were auto tackle and click to catch. People thought those were horrific. They thought it took all the skill out of the game. They never wanted to play a game like it. Um, Now people wouldn't take you seriously if you didn't have those things in it.
oh yeah, not at all.
Um, but
Yeah,
no, sorry. So the question with the 11 for 11, because there are leagues I've seen actually recently, one that I'm trying to help out when I get the chance, who've been able to do it. And the big thing was just changing the blocking, because that like spam blocking, especially. Okay, so the way I originally came up with blocking, the before I started with row football, there was no blocking. That just didn't exist. Sometimes people would use those trip tackle tools that they use to block, but that's kind of overpowered, throwing people on the ground. Then my first attempt at blocking was I would weld them together and they would get stuck together. But it was either too strong or didn't do anything. It was, then I tried like slowing them down. I couldn't figure it out. So then I was like, you know what? This is Roblox. Roblox has all these really cool, unique mechanics. I'm just going to go out and I'm going to search for something unique that I haven't seen before. And do you remember when they used to have gears that they sold in the store?
Yeah, like you get a gravity coil and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you'd get just all these, there's like hundreds of random items. Well, I just went to this gear fight on the Heights, which is that sword fight on the Heights map, but you got to use all the gear that you had. And I was like, okay, if there's anywhere I'm going to get a unique idea for a mechanic, it's coming here. So I went with a couple of friends and we were testing out. I just bought like hundreds of gear to just, because again, Robux was useless at that point. What else was I going to spend it on? Um, and just trying to test out a ton of stuff, and I couldn't figure it out. Nothing really made sense. And then there's one random girl joined the server with a hair dryer, and this hair dryer just it sent out tons of bubbles that pushed people back, and she just obliterated everyone, just throwing everybody off the edge with this hair dryer that you get hit by a bubble and it throws you back. And I was like, that's it. That's perfect. That makes perfect sense. With the pushing you back thing, and that was what I based the blocking off of. Uh,
That's amazing.
where that, yeah, where that became problematic for bigger servers with like the 11v11 was that it just again it created so much chaos. I did actually have a ton of fun playing O line. It was like me and like two or three other people, and we would coordinate with how we were going to play O line and just fix up these projections. And those we could only do 10v10 servers because Roblox had a max cap of 20 players per server at that point. Um, it was tons of fun, but it was not easy and it was really chaotic. And there's no way you could run between us with all the bodies just flying back and forth. So then there was barely really setting a pocket. So became crowded. It became chaotic. However, I have seen some people who've made some like lots with the RFL. They've made some updated blocking systems that are really able to both do the pushing thing, but also grapple up. And they had a ton of other little like finesse moves and power moves built in there really seamlessly. That if you go watch some of their streams or their games, the blocking just looks realistic and it looks good, and that makes that 11v11 very possible.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how possible. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
You'll have to send me a link to that because I've played O-line and LFG and in some D1 games, and you basically just X spam and just hope like the guy doesn't shed you. And I know there's pro DEs who have their shed tech, but a lot of them they put on VPN, so if you're like 150 ping, you can like phase through the O-line. Like it just feels like a terrible system. Like blocking is too OP.
Yeah, like it's you got to find a good happy medium. That's really the hard part. That's the one that's gonna make or break it. Because I feel like the catching and the passing is pretty good right now. There's very little things that I would change about it. I would personally, especially for leagues, up pass breakups a lot. Just to force people to have to like actually get open on the routes and not just bank on being able to catch a jump ball in a crowd. That just doesn't feel as skillful to me personally. But that's me. But yeah,
Yeah.
so if the ball, oh, go ahead.
Well, I would want that, but in LFG, they have. I heard they made it 2%. But if I have the trucking game pass, I get popped less than everybody else. So I like the idea, but when it's pay to win, it's just kind of hard sell.
Yeah, yeah, and I I disagree with having the trucking there. Um, and people were not a huge fan of how much I liked the PBU whenever I was testing that out because I had it. I think I had it basically if you got well because I also had a health tackle at that point. To make it to where you can't just get like your foot tapped. Like it wasn't like, oh, I got to hit you 20 times. Um, it was you had to like actually get your body on the person, so it was possible to break tackles if they were just like arm tackling you. Uh, but my pass breakup at that point was basically if you got pretty much full on tackled before you reached the ground or before you took those 2 steps, then there was like I think it was like 20 to 25% chance every hit after that percentage that you get for it to be a pass breakup, which adds up again. If they're really hitting you and you're like in the middle of the air, you're probably not coming down with it.
Yeah, for
Which
sure.
yeah, it made more sense to me. It made it more competitive in my mind. But yeah, if you get that good blocking, 11v11 is possible. I don't know for a game. For a league, it's possible. It's still hard because it's hard to get 11 or 22 players in a place. That's a lot of coordinating to do. Um, for just like a game, it would still require a lot of AIs. Because again, you're not really actually talking to your teammates. And there's going to be a lot of gaps in your teams that a lot of AIs are needing to take. So it's hard to communicate with this many people and not let it just be chaos whenever there's that many people there.
Wow. Now, back to Football Legends. I remember the Barton Bruisers, the Dukesville Dummies, and the Pimberley Punishers. Now, how did you come up with the teams, and do you still have team items?
I didn't come up with the teams.
You did not.
I saw myself as a coder. I did not see myself very creative back then. Although I still did some creative stuff. I was just not very artsy. So at the time, Roblox was creating hats, and they happened to have 6 hats that had been released that were football related, and they were those teams. Um, so that was the ones I used. That plus the fact that I think you could retexture hats. Sorry, you could retexture hats, but you couldn't create new meshes at this point. They didn't really trust Roblox community to do what it does today with those kind of things. Probably rightfully so. So I was still kind of stuck using that. I could retexture it, and a lot of people wanted NFL teams, but I was scared of copyright infringements, which was clearly a good call because everybody except UFL that had NFL stuff got taken down for specifically that. And UFL only got it because, again, EA's contract with them just ran out this last year, so they were able to get themselves that sponsorship and that collaboration, which is amazing. I never thought that would happen.
Oh, yes, indeed. So, wait, EA had a contract with a game before NFL Universe Football?
Oh no, they had a contract with NFL to have the sole rights to the NFL likelihood, and then as well as with the NFL Players Association is what you need to get the players' name, image, and likeness, the NIL stuff. But like no other games, period, Roblox or not, we're allowed to use NFL merchandise, NFL looks, or teams, or that would be again copyright infringement on them. So UFL was able to get that contract because EA's like 20-year solo rights contract had just ran up, and that's why Madden was so big when there was many other competitors for a while, because they got that contract with the NFL, and then nobody else could compete.
Oh, interesting. So now any game can have the NFL teams, just not the players?
Um, if again, they still have to get that contract
Right.
with the NFL. They still have to go talk to them, but they can. They can also do the opposite. I've seen some games that get in touch with the NFL Players Association or with specific players to get the players' likelihood, not the NFL teams.
All right, now I'll have to ask you if my chronological order is right. So we had Football Legends originally, and then we had
Mhm.
old Football Legends, and you were under the name BJJScrambler. And
Yeah.
then we got new Football Legends, and it says now the creator is Legend of Guest. So
So
explain
that
all
was
that.
so BJJ Scrambler again. I was doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. BJJ Scrambler was style of wrestling, and that was an alt account I had made to get away from SDuke because, like I said, I got every server I went to filled up in about a minute. I'm so happy that doesn't happen anymore. It's kind of nice to not be recognized because they would be just harassing me the entire time if I tried to do anything but make Football Legends.
My word.
Um, so I made that alt account to try and get away from it. Still wasn't able to escape it. And after a while of OFL being popular and me again just being constantly harassed by it, I was like, I don't really want to do this right now. I'm about to go off to college. I'm going to focus on wrestling. I'm going to focus on my other pursuits and just things that I was doing. So I made OFL uncopy-locked. I was like, it can be public access. I want to see what you guys can do with it. Um, and the new Football Legends, that was the most successful person that took a copy of that game and was able to keep going with it. They added a decent bit. It was still like super glitchy. I think things they added that were good. They did try to add field goal kicks, and they added NFL teams, which is again why it didn't last too long. But
Oh, okay,
it was okay.
so
Yeah.
Legend of Guest, he just took your code, what she was allowed to do, and then he just kind of remade it.
Mhm.
Because I saw in the trailer there were NFL teams, so that's why those will be in the game. Because some random guy just added them.
Yeah, that wasn't me. And again, he was allowed to. I don't want to take that away from him. I purposely uncopy locked it with the hope that people would improve on it. But again, I guess my expectations of what I was seeing with the improvement was just a little bit high because I don't. I like I said before, I have a very different approach to how I see the game development, especially on Roblox. I want it to be these unique kind of mechanics, and I want it to be a unique world that we're kind of building into. And I was seeing a lot of people really just taking the safe route. And then also I love football, so I eventually got back into it, and I absolutely love Pro Football. Still my baby. It's something I still play today. Like I said, I'm creating a new league that's going to be pretty unique because it's kind of made for old timers like us that don't really have the time to do leagues the way that they are now. But that'll be in the future. So still kicking with it.
Wow, that's amazing. We'll have to plug it, but I'm curious, in which of these games was the cattail slash batwings epidemic? Because I remember at the time I was a first person QB, and these people could just infinitely jump if they had a cattail. So they would just camp at the
Mhm.
50. People would be wide in the end zone, and I couldn't throw them the ball. So when did that go down?
That was OFL. I didn't like it, but then that was also in the NFL game you were talking about, the new Football Legends. And the difference was he encouraged it. I really didn't like it, and I tried to do away with it, but I was just not a particularly great coder, like I said. So I struggled to keep it out of the game.
Oh, so you try
Um,
and patch it, and then these people would just find workarounds?
it like I could very easily patch it now, and I was able to patch it in my next game. I was running into a lot of problems where when I'm trying to put these patches on top of an already built game, it just wasn't. Um, it wouldn't function as well as when I made the game from scratch with the intention of these kind of functions. Yeah, I see that. They can't tell. So what was happening was actually that. And what made it difficult, especially difficult at that time, was again the Roblox mechanics made it that if you were to fall flat, they gave you an out of being able to press backspace um, to get your character to jump back up, and it would give you a little bit of a jump. So people first figured out, oh, I can press space, and then I can dive, which part of the dive was making them go flat and not able to control themselves anymore. I think they called it platform stand was the name, the Roblox name for it. So they would do that, but then they would quickly press backspace to get out of it, which would give them another jump up. But then backspace also had this thing where um, it had another function that it would remove your hats and it would drop them. And in particular, the cattails, while it looked small, the mesh for it was actually huge. It went all the way from your legs to the top of their head, meaning it was like a really huge part that was falling. So they would catch it again pretty much immediately, uh, and it reattaching to them would push them up even further. And then if they time it right, they can get another dive, backspace, and fly up even higher. And that was what was causing that glitch.
My word! So they were just jumping again and again and again, and then this was encouraged. Like people like that aspect to the game.
I hated it, like I said, because I
Yeah.
felt like it took away from all the sim. And I love strategy in general. When I play football, I'm looking for the strategic way outs. I don't like to just bomb it. I'm like gonna very meticulously take your team apart. Um, but people, I don't know, people enjoy anything they're good at. I'm gonna just say that. That's why they get really attached to certain mechanics. And while they were up in arms about me removing that, but I still saw it the same way I did with the auto tackle and the click to catch. I didn't think it was healthy for the meta, and I think anybody looking back on it today would probably agree that, like, yeah, being able to jump 50 feet in the air is not healthy for the game.
No, it is not at all. Now, after you, Cabler made Legendary Football, Existenza made Football Fusion, and Clickster made RNFL, Ultimate Football, and NFL Universe. So, which of these new Roblox football devs have you talked to, and what have you all learned from each other?
I've talked to all of them. So yeah, Cap, I like I said before, there were a couple of people that whose opinions I actually like really respected when I was listening to public feedback. 'Cause for the most part, I was still like, I'm going to do my own thing. But Cavler was one of those few people that I didn't even know he was a dev. He was just somebody who played the game a lot. He was like number 6 in all-time tackles. He was really good. And I actually, um, was it? Yeah, I'd actually asked him to like coach a team with me at one point because he was just a good player, but he was
Wow.
also just really smart and a good guy. So I respected whenever he gave me his opinion on things. Um, so the way his game came about is I kind of made him mad because um, I was trying to get rid of the whole pass interference, the blocking way downfield, and people would just push you out of the way of a catch, even with the extra block. And me being just hot-headed me, I was like, you know what? Somebody kept taunting me, and they're like, if you don't want it in the game, then make it a flag. You're the creator. You can do something about it. And I was like, you know what? Fine. I'll make it a flag. Um,
Uh
so I
oh.
made a pass interference flag, but then it became problematic especially because if there's a pass interference flag on both sides, it's a redo of downs. Um, that's just the rules, and that happened quite often when you're playing with people who really don't know what they're doing and just getting into little tussles on the side,
I can
and it was
imagine. Yeah.
annoying. Yeah. And then Cab messaged me and he was like, "Hey man, if you've got all the mechanics to make it throw a flag whenever they're doing this, can't you just like make the block not work?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I was being way too hot-headed and didn't think of that really simple solution that makes a lot more sense than what I was doing." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that, but I want to be a jerk for a little bit longer. I'm gonna leave it in for like at least another week or so before I switched to what you said." And he
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, that's stupid." So he went off and made his own game. And he didn't copy my code. He made his game completely from scratch. That was completely his, and I respect him a ton for it. He did a really good job with it. Um,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like mechanic wise, it was exactly the same. He made the catch box much smaller, um, much smaller. Like I don't think people know, but there's actually invisible blocks around you in my game. There's one around your torso that increased the tackle radius as much as I wanted to, because there's again that's the simplest way to increase the tackle rate box. And I experimented a lot, and I did a lot of testing with like specific numbers, like where I wanted the gravity, how I wanted the speed, uh, the tackle boxes, the catch radius, adjusting it like by point zero 0.01, 0.005 kind of thing at a time, and spent hours just tuning it. Um, but I had the tackle box, and then I had two other invisible boxes around your hands that also increased your catch radius to the size that I preferred. He didn't have those invisible boxes. It was just your hand, so it's a much smaller catch radius. He had the blocking the way it should have been, not with the flags. And then I don't remember, his ball was just different. I think that was really the only differences with the game. But then other than that, it just ran smoother than mine. Because again, mine had a lot of patchwork at that point, and every time I I made a game and I tried to add a bunch of new features on afterwards, that's when it started to get a little bit buggy. Versus whenever I just make that original game with all the features that it's intended to, then it would run pretty smooth.
Interesting. Now, what have you talked to XS Tenzin about?
Existence. So he got his game after Tabler was banned. I don't know how he got it. My understanding is he just had, like, I guess was in Cabler's inner circle, and either he was in his inner circle or he hacked it and he got a copy of the game. I don't know what it was. But either way, Football Fusion was the next game. It was exactly the same. I think in the 10 years since Legendary Football, since Gabler's game, he's added um, some slightly different graphics. He did like change the colors of some things, and he added the illegal touching rule. I think that's the only other thing he's added in the last 10 years. But I talked to him a couple of times specifically because I was actually developing another football game for a while that never ended up getting released because I was working with a team that really wasn't helping me on that. And then the Olympics one got in the way. And that was another game I had that went off and was really successful. Um, but it had a ton of mechanics that UFL's actually implemented today that I was like, hey, I think these would be really great. I want to give you these things. I want to see if these are things you would want to implement. And he was just like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to do any of that. And it wasn't until UFL started gaining a ton of traction, started doing super good, and passed up his game that he came back to me and was like, hey, actually, can I have some of those things? And I was just like, I mean, it's still there if you want it, but I don't think he's really implemented any of those. Except maybe I think I did teach him how to do the defensive passer rating, but I don't know if he actually did that.
I think it is a thing. You have a QBR, and if you're like near someone and they catch it, it says like it's your fault, and I forget the exact
Yeah,
stat.
yeah, because it's exactly what the defensive passer rating is, and that's one of the stats I like the most. I think that's the best way to measure a defender's or a defensive back's contributions, not just the interceptions, just really like how many passes they're able to stop. And it was especially good in that version of the game that I had that had really high pass breakups because you were able to get a lot of pass breakups in there as well. Um, but again, he wanted nothing to do with it until he saw that um, CLXR and PHJ were already doing that as well. And then he asked me how to do it, so I showed him how.
Oh wow, yeah. So now I've talked to Clixer a bit too. I'm I guess an alpha tester for NFL Universe Football.
Mhm.
What are the games you've talked to him about?
So back in their, I think NFL Universe, I absolutely loved their starting menu. I thought it was gorgeous. And I think we did very briefly talk about collaborating. Um, but I'm pretty sure. I think I backed out just because I was kind of like feeling done with football to begin with, but also I was really turned off by the gameplay of their game, and I was like, and I had also just gone through pretty bad experience with working with another team, so I just didn't know if we would really see eye to eye on how the game would go. Um, but since then, since coming back, because like I said, I've got nothing to do with coding today. I'm a marriage counselor. I do therapy for a living. I'm not a programmer. Um,
Oh wow.
but I saw right before, right before they released this last one. Yeah, I ended up finding them again, seeing the kind of stuff they were doing. I think no, he let me into their Cloudburst developer group thing, so I got to see some of that while they were building it, and absolutely love what they've done since then. Yeah, so just big fan of theirs, and big fan of the way that they've been just like I said, and uh, gosh, what's the word for it? Man, I don't know. I'm not very good with words right now, but innovating. The way that they've actually been innovating and really starting to move pro football in a new direction. That again, they're the gold standard right now. So yeah,
Well, absolutely. You mentioned it a bit earlier how we've gone from, just such a small, humble beginnings of Roblox football all the way to having an official NFL game, which you said is like the gold standard of football. Like back then, could you have ever imagined it would get to this state?
no, I did not think it would ever get this way or look this good. One, I didn't think NFL contracts were possible. Hence the reason I was so against using NFL teams, even though everyone was begging me to. Um, Two, like I said, at the time when I was creating games, Roblox was not paying you, and that made a huge difference. Like I think Developer Exchange was the best thing Roblox ever did. Because what it did was that at that time, you made a game for the fun of making a game. You did not care how it looked. You got it to function, and you were excited that you made a working game. So the games looked horrible. Uh, and they were fun and they were all really unique because people were making really unique stuff, and that's what I'm still like nostalgic about old Roblox for, and wish there was a little bit more of that like old school just sandboxy feel to it. It's still kind of the ultimate sandbox game. So it was also significantly smaller at that time. Like I said, or here I can even look right now. So at that time, 3,000, 4,000 people in one game. That was huge. Usually 2,000 people was enough to be the number one game. Right now, top trending, there's 247,700 people playing one game. And I say 626,000 on this other one. Like those numbers did not make sense. But it was because the developer exchange happened. And when people started to pay you for making the games, it was like, oh, I need to make high quality games to get money, not necessarily just making a game for the fun of making a game.
No, for sure. And then that just adds competition. It brings in developer teams. Maybe makes it a little pay to win, but overall, it's just going to be a huge benefit. Now, are there any features from your football games that we weren't able to touch on you'd like to explain?
Mm, they're like backstory or lore. I feel like we touched on some of the more like important features. Um, and and then there was some stuff I was hoping to do in the future that still hasn't happened. That was more me being a fun like numbers guy. I want to do a lot of statistically stuff. Wanted to do a lot of just unique animations and things. And I'd love to see more run game coming into play, but that's actually something I'm planning on doing myself anyways. Uh, I guess there's one story like I said, the original Football Legends was not planned to be a game per se. I feel like all of these just kind of happened by accident now that I look back at it. But I was originally creating tools that I wanted to give to leagues to try to do unique stuff. So I created the auto tackle. I created a way better ball. I created the blocking and stuff like that. I also created the line of scrimmage stuff that can move around because they didn't even have that at that point. But I also created a GUI leaderboard because the graphic user interfaces that were there had like just been created. Nobody else really messed with that. They had literal blocks that were standing up there, and that was their scoreboards and their timers. It was really ugly, really plain. So I made that, and I made a place where I was like showcasing all of this. The thing is, like, only me and a couple friends could actually run the leaderboard. So unless I was there, there wasn't any games that were actually happening. Um, so one day it was about to get 10,000 visits, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm actually excited for this. I'm going to try and, when it gets 10,000 visits, I was telling a bunch of my friends, I'm like, I'm going to do what I can to try and make it to where there will be an auto ref, and you don't need me to run the scoreboard. Yeah, I was promising my friends, I said, but when I get to 10,000 visits, I'm gonna try to make this auto ref so that y'all don't need me here anymore. It was like 5 visits away. It was 9,995, and I was sitting there waiting just for like 4 people to show up, and then it could hit that number, and nobody showed for like 30, 40 minutes, which is unusual. But I was like, dang it, okay. I'll just keep waiting. I'll see what happens. I'm gonna make it happen today. Um, and then finally, he showed up, and it was this guy who was actually really, really infamous, and that I had a pretty bad relationship with at that point. It was this guy named Jared Valdez. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, he made the big paintball. Allegedly stole games. Allegedly.
It wasn't allegedly. So I didn't have a good relationship with him because at one point he had come to me about buying one of my games, and I was a small developer at this point. I thought I was a big shot because I had 20,000 visits total across like 10 games. Um, and he came to me and he wanted to buy this one game, this like racing game I made, and I was like, okay, it's not fully there yet, but I'm happy to sell it to you. Let me just fix up a couple of things. And he was really sweet when I would talk to him. He was a really nice guy. But again, second he joined a server, he was followed by hundreds of people just harassing him, telling him the most just vile things. You know how toxic the internet can get.
Yeah.
And the whole time he talked to me, he sounded like just a sweet kid, and he was just being nice. And we talked for a couple of weeks and hung out a couple of times. I helped him with some stuff, but then he approached me about this other game I made that was real near and dear to my heart, which was this one where this one was a game that I made based off of somebody else's game that from a long time ago. It was called like Command and Conquer or Conquest or something like that. Basically, there was 2 castles, and you recruited soldiers, and you got to give them commands like you pull out your bow, pull out your sword, attack, stay put, things like that. And then you would try and go capture the enemy's flag and kill as many people as you could. And it was a lot of fun just messing with those AI kind of things, or not really AI, but NPC stuff. So I was proud of it. And he asked if he could buy it, and I said that one wasn't for sale. Well, 2 days later, he published that exact game. He had stolen it from me. And I was like, what the heck, dude? I said it wasn't for sale. And he's like, dude, you know who I am. You know that this was going to happen. And he took that game that I made, and it was front page for months. And
Hey, bro.
it really broke my heart. That I was like, dang, that was my hard work. I'm not getting anything for it. And he published it on multiple accounts. So we hadn't been talking for a long time. But he saw that I had posted a ton of messages about this, like almost to 10,000 visits and how big I was. So he came. He didn't say a word, but of course he joined, and there was 40 people who joined directly after him, all there just to harass him. Then he ran and he walked into a little corner and just stood there, didn't say a word, and I had 4 servers worth of people that were all there just because they hated him so much. And I was like, okay, that was really nice of you. They did me a solid. But that was what the main reason I actually started building Football Legends was he did that, and I was like, okay, now I'm gonna try and fulfill my promise of making this an automatic game.
It's a crazy backstory. Yeah, I joined him once in a random game, and yeah, I was a part of a crowd of maybe like 30 people.
Yeah, people were mean. They hated him.
He was a celebrity. Well, that's what it is. Big paintball game. I didn't know any of the drama. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the maker of my favorite paintball game. I have to join him.
Yeah, and then you find out like, oh, he didn't actually make it, and you're like, oh, dang.
Oh man, it's crazy stuff. So, how many games have you made like in total on Roblox?
Many to count. Yeah, no, I've probably made like good like 50 or so. Ones that were actually like popular, there's probably 4 or 5 that actually like went anywhere. Um, yeah, my most successful was obviously the football games. I'm gonna count that just as one. Then there was the wrestling one that did well. Um, Made this Olympics game in about a week. That was actually really successful. Just me and another friend were like, "Hey, Olympics is going to be starting in uh, like 1 or 2 weeks. We should do something for it." We had both made a ton of sports games, even though I've been like trying to get out of my niche as the sports guy. I was like, we have a ton of sports games. We can really just throw them all into one place and call it an Olympics. So we, you know, did what we could, busted our butts for a week straight, and made this game where you basically like joined a lobby. And I think it was actually the first game to use this mechanic where you joined the lobby, then you found a room with the game you're wanting to, and you could click to join a server, and then it would teleport y'all to that server together. It was the first game to use that kind of mechanic. I know that's pretty like commonplace now, but we were proud of it because it was innovative at the time, and it just had that one got like 9 million visits in 2 weeks. So really happy with that one.
Yeah, I think that's what Roblox is kind of missing today. We don't have a quality Olympic Games because there was like a corporate Walmart-esque Olympic Games, but that was just awful.
Oh, actually, so I made that game I think 2012, but a year or two ago it got copyright striked and taken down because they had that other Olympics contract. They started going through Roblox and they took down my game and I was like, oh, okay. I don't think anyone's played this in 8+ years, but that's nice.
Oh no way! You own Trigomatic Inc. I used to stream this Olympic Games, bro. I had no idea. You made that Olympics Games where we could hop around and there was like fencing and sledding and all that and racing.
Yeah.
The heck?
Yeah, and again, we made that. So we made the summer one in like a week. So it was glitchy, but we eventually, by the time the Olympics ended, I think we had a pretty solid game going. And the Winter Olympics was coming around, and I was coming to that same group of guys because it went so smoothly. I was like, "Hey, let's do this again," and none of them wanted to help. And so I think the Winter Olympics one really fell flat. Like my guy who designed the lobby and really helped me with the building, made it real pretty. He was like, "No, I just want to do coding now." I was like, "Dang it, no! Like the coding's done and we're good there. I need something pretty, and I can't make something pretty." So it came up really ugly the second time around.
It's insane, man. No, you had a crazy work ethic, and you told me about the importance of your Catholic faith. Faith. What role does that play in your work ethic and the ability to create so much?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I feel like my Catholic faith has really inspired my work outside of Roblox far more than in Roblox. Like I said, I'm a couples counselor now. I specifically work with couples because that's something that's extremely near and dear to my heart. But before that, I was working at children's shelters, I was working at domestic violence agencies. Yeah, and worked at just a lot of social work kind of background as well. Worked with the elderly. I'm just doing everything I can really just to give it back as much as I can. And that was what I really fell in love with. And I kind of fell out of love with coding. Like I enjoy coding hobby wise, but it was really getting to help people and really getting to have that kind of impact on people that's made such a difference for me than what I do today. when it came to my Roblox games, one of my big things that, again, Roblox was way more toxic back then than it is now, and I was trying to do as much as I can to try to get as much of the toxicity out of my games as possible. Um, I was holding contests to see who the most like sportsmanlike person was in the game. Um,
Wow.
Ironically, the very first one, I felt really flattered because the first one I did, everybody almost unanimously voted on my alternate account. And I was like, oh, okay, that feels nice. But after that, I was continuing to host those. I was like putting Bible quotes and other inspirational quotes up to try and like really just get people to keep in mind being kind to others while they're up there. And I don't know, we were doing everything we can to try to take that out of the game, to try to make it as healthy environment as possible. And same thing when I was running a league before, just doing what we can to make it as like healthy and good of an environment for other people. And so I did, sometimes I do like Bible studies and stuff with people when I was on Roblox. I actually uploaded the first Bible to Roblox,
Oh,
so that
wow.
it's all accessible there. But yeah. Again, I feel like it's influenced my life outside of Roblox far more than it has inside of Roblox.
Oh, for sure. Now, finally, are there any current or upcoming projects you'd like to promote, or we could link when they come out?
Uh, Maybe they come out. So yeah, there was a couple of games I was wanting to make that I put a pause on. So like I said, I'm uh, starting up my private practice as a counselor right now, and that's my main project is getting in clients for that, and yeah, doing therapy, and I've got some webinars I'm going to be doing for that about. Actually, one of them's about implementing your faith into relationships. So that is one of the other ways that my faith is coming into my work and just what I do that way on that side of things. Roblox wise, again, me and some of my friends were making. So it's not really a league that we're going to be doing, but it's going to be based out of UFL. It'll probably come out in about 2 months, where we decided we were going to just really try to take advantage of the webhooks things that they offer on UFL and try to automate as much of those league processes as possible. And we were going to try to build a league that's, like I said, built for the old heads like you and me. That's going to be built with the idea that you don't have to make a game every week or twice a week, and you don't have to have these set schedules and meet with all these people, and you don't have to worry about all these roster sizes and problems like that. It was just going to be very simple, kind of like the travel leagues. You sign up your team to be able to participate in this kind of like 3 month, 4 month long process where every week you get to have one official match. That you go to the after you've signed up your team, you go to a chat, you find somebody else wanting to play a game, y'all play a game. It records the results, sends it to our website, and then we'll host tournaments on the weekend every now and again. That'll be worth a lot more points and be a lot more of a unique experience because I don't think people really do pro football tournaments. But then you just gain championship points that way, and at the end of the season, kind of like they do for all the individual sports like PGL or tennis and racing, things like that. And you get enough points, you get into the championship bracket, find a champion that way.
Oh, yeah, you have to send me the link to that because I'd definitely be interested in playing.
Yeah, no, we're excited for it because it's going to be really relaxed and that it's something we'll advertise to other leagues to be like, hey, this is a place where you can go get your practice scrims against teams from different leagues. You don't have to keep just playing the same couple of people you always do. You can go find people to recruit from other leagues because I know that's a big problem with a lot of leagues is not having fresh blood coming into them. Um, at the same time, while it is still really relaxed and low key that way, it's also got a certain prestige that this is actually the place where leagues go to compete against other leagues. So you're not just, if you win this, you're not the best in your league. You're kind of the best all around.
Wow. Well, thank you for your time, and it was dope to hear about the creation of Football Legends and just what went into the foundation of Roblox Football.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. And again, I'm a big fan of your work too, so keep it up.
Oh, thank you.